everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about some unhealthy eating habits that we wouldn't recognize as eating disorders such as anorexia or bulimia, but we would still recognize them as problematic in the context of our well-being. After watching this video, you can let me know in the comment section if any of the habits I'm going to be talking about, if they resonate with you, and if you already recognize them as problematic. Number one as an unhealthy eating habit that we would recognize as problematic in the context of eating disorder, it is when person is constantly being on some sort of diets. So they might be on one diet for 2-3 weeks, that diet finished, most likely didn't really work, then they go on another one, and this is constant for them. And what this relationship with food does to the person is that they constantly think about the food, what they can eat, what they cannot eat, what they need to restrict from the diet, what they shouldn't. And also they pay more attention to their shape, to their size, they're measuring themselves. Second unhealthy eating habit that we would recognize as problematic in the context of eating disorder, it is when person skips their meals. So very often I will hear from someone saying that they don't eat, for instance, breakfast because they want to lose weight. However, skipping meals can create a scarcity mindset. So that means that when the time of lunch or dinner comes, the person will overeat to compensate for the calories that they haven't consumed during breakfast. The third unhealthy eating habit that we would recognize as problematic, it is when people, they have their clean days and cheat days. So most of the week they will eat healthy, and then they will allow themselves of maybe 3 or 2 days a week eat unhealthy. And then when we say unhealthy, it means that they will indulge in food that is high in sugar and is highly processed. But with that kind of set of mind, there's a high risk that the person is getting themselves in a loop of binging on unhealthy food by creating again the mindset of scarcity. The fourth problematic eating habit, it is fasting. And this one's a bit tricky because I do see the benefits of, for instance, intermittent fasting, but at the same time, for some people at least, fasting can create this habit of binging, because in this short window of time when people are allowed to eat, they might potentially don't eat a normal meal, but they will actually starve themselves with a huge amount of food to compensate for the time when they cannot eat. The fifth problematic eating habit that potentially could turn into an eating disorder, it is when people, they overeat on daily basis. And that happens when after even satisfying the hunger, the person doesn't finish their eating. And that can happen in situations when, for instance, children are being forced to eat more than maybe what they want. So let's say that the child may be satisfied the hunger, they finish their meal, but there's still some food left on the plate, and the parents, they might actually force them to clean everything off the plate. And also it might happen in situations when children or adults, they eat their meals in front of the screen. I'm sure you can relate with that sometimes when you eat your meal, you just suddenly realize like, oh, have I eaten already everything? Because the person is so preoccupied with what's going on the screen, they might not even realize how much they've eaten. Another problematic eating habit that potentially could lead to eating disorder, it is when we use food as a comfort. So that happens in situations when we're stressed or when we're sad. And obviously if that happens here and there, I guess that's completely fine. But when you recognize this habit as a default way of dealing with uncomfortable emotions, that's definitely worrying. But unfortunately, I need to say that the comfort eating is actually part of our culture. I'm sure many of you can say that you've seen anywhere on a bus or maybe on tube, parents comforting their children with food, with sweets when they start crying. And then obviously children, they learn with time that when we feel something uncomfortable, when we stress, we need to reach out for food to comfort ourselves. The seventh problematic habit in context of eating, it is when we excessively exercise. So for instance, we will eat something, we will start feeling guilty, and that will then lead us to excessively exercise, leading to actually even physical damage of the body, leading to people maybe needing to sacrifice their relationships because maybe they might not have enough time to spend time with their loved ones because they need to exercise. And in some cases, it might be as well that the person will only allow themselves to eat certain food if they know that later on maybe they can run for 2 hours to burn the calories. So all these eating habits that I just talked about, they might not be diagnosed as eating disorder, but they might be contributing to the fact that maybe you can't spend as much time as you would like with maybe your friends or family, or you might be spending hours in a day thinking about food, what you're gonna eat, what you're not gonna eat, or even you might be drawn into social media watching, for instance, mukbang for hours. And with time, some of these unhealthy habits that you've developed, they can actually become quite emotionally overwhelming, leading you to feel actually anxious and depressed. And to prevent this from happening, it is good to actually question your unhealthy eating habits and question whether maybe you live in denial. So in some situations, it might be enough for you to become aware whether your eating habits are unhealthy or not. And to help you to gauge that, you can ask yourself these few questions. How much time in a day I spend thinking about the food? How often do I weigh or measure myself? How often do I exercise with the aim to lose weight? What I normally do in situations when I feel distressed or sad. That will be it for today, and I hope you found this video helpful, and I'm gonna see you in the next one then. Thank you. Bye bye.